There is a fundamental difference between the logical process of deduction and the more practical, rational process of induction. Deduction or deductive reasoning is a fairly straightforward logical concept that can be used in hypotheses and in general reasoning to reach certain truths. For example, all men are mortal, Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Inductive reasoning is really not logic, but a necessary part of being rational and surviving in life, in which general principles derive from specific observations. For example, I see 1,000 ravens that are black, therefore I conclude all ravens must be black. Inductive reasoning provides strong evidence for the truth of the conclusion, but can never reach the certain conclusions of deductive reasoning. While the conclusion of a deduction is certain, the truth of the conclusion of an inductive argument can never be anything more than probable, based upon the evidence given. The problem with hypotheses and testing in science is that though they are intended to be statements of certain truth about the nature of reality, the hypotheses and the testings always result from or have a necessary premise based on an inductive reasoning conclusion that cannot be a certain truth. This problem has been known since antiquity, but its analysis in the present modern form is usually attributed to the philosopher David Hume. So, for example, the statement, "I have inspected 1,000 ravens and they were all black, therefore all ravens are black," is an acceptable, simple hypothesis that can be tested by the scientific method, and any conclusions would be science. However, this hypothesis and the testing, no matter how many times it is tested and the test repeated and all parameters controlled, cannot lead to a necessary or absolute or even certain truth. This inability to ever reach certain truth is known both empirically and logically because of the logical structure of the inductive reasoning. Empirically, regardless of how many ravens or sense experiences we examined, be it 1,000 or 1 trillion, there is always the possibility that the next one or a future one will be white or will be different. So a conclusion induced from sense experience can never empirically be absolute, necessary, or certain. The logical problem with the structure of inductive reasoning can be contemplated through what is known as Hempel's raven paradox, named after the philosopher Karl Hempel, who studied the problem significantly in the 20th century. Logically, this raven's paradox goes as follows. The statement, "all ravens are black," is logically equivalent to the statement, "all non-black things are non-ravens." That is, if P, then Q is logically the same as if not Q, then not P. Going to sense experience, we know further that the statement, "A is not black and not a raven," by inductive reasoning confirms or supports the statement, "all non-black things are non-ravens." Since it proves this statement, it also proves the logically equivalent statement that all ravens are black. Therefore, logically, through inductive reasoning, it should be valid to observe the Lincoln Memorial, a non-black and non-raven sense experience, and from that empirically confirm the statement, "all ravens are black." However, intuitively and practically, no one thinks so, nor would anyone consider such a test worthy of being called scientific method. It is a violation of the simplicity attribute and a violation of the controlled parameters requirements at least. Now, in theory, if you wanted to be a scientist, in theory you could go about the universe and observe that all white sense experience is not a raven, and from that conclude that all ravens are black. But such experiments would require almost an infinite amount of time to complete and thus be scientifically worthless. Even then, you would still not reach certain truth because the possibility will remain that in the future there might be a white sense experience that is a raven. This is one reason why truth is not an attribute of either science or the scientific method. The other reason for having the falsifiability attribute that I will contemplate later, the other side of the coin of this induction problem, is the concept of cause and effect that is commonly induced from sense experience by inductive reasoning, though it should be a meaningless concept. I will contemplate this next.